Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Hellbender Vinyl. For those of you that don't know, Hellbender is a vinyl record pressing plant located right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, doing high quality, professional, top of the line record pressing, baby. We finally got one here. There aren't very many in the world, let alone the country, and to have one right under our nose is an insane resource. So if you are a musician looking to get some stuff pressed to wax, I highly, highly recommend checking out the folks over at Hellbender. Tell them Sykes sent you. I've always wanted to say that. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Sit back, relax, and let's start the beats. Aaron, Genital Shame, in the building. Make some noise for the internet. Cue the applause.
We've started.
Yes, we're cooking.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here. This is the first time that we're really getting to sit down and chat. I follow you online, and the reason why I'm bringing that up is that I could tell that you are somebody that really loves all kinds of music and art and creativity, and it seems like it's a really important part of your soul.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a good assumption for me to make.
Yeah. You've not only made an ass of you, but also me. So they kind of like an algebraic equation. It cancels each other out. There are no asses here.
Yes. And we can get into the band, the art, the music a little bit, but I also want to get into who you are as a person outside of that, if there even is life outside of art. Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? We're asking the hard-hitting questions.
Save that for the GRE, the essay portion. I don't know.
So, Genital Shame is a loud, gross guitar music project.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to get into the nitty-gritty subgenres of this, because it's kind of hard to pin down exactly what you're doing, but in a cool way. I feel like there's a lot of influence in the nuance of it. I feel like you really got to kind of listen through the distortion and the layers to pick up what's going on with what you're doing.
I think tilapia and some chicken preparations, the word blackened must be used, unfortunately. And I think that word comes into play as a sort of assurance or insurance that I have against being a traditionally black metal project, where if you use the word blackened, that buys you some wiggle room.
Sure, maybe it's a little more elastic.
It's a little more elastic. So yeah.
Seasoned to taste, if you will.
Seasoned to taste. And the blackened parts, kind of like tilapia, are the best parts. That's where all the flavor is. So that's why I use tremolo picking, because there's a lot of flavor in it.
Yeah. Something that, I always find really fascinating about people. Now I'm making an assumption again, because I'm getting to learn about you. Is you seem to be somebody that is well-versed in a lot of different kinds of music and art, probably digest all sorts of stuff. And it's always fascinating when I meet people like you, because I'm in a similar boat off the bat, where we could do anything with this art, anything that we want to do, but something about it is gravitating towards the blackened nature, the darker nature, the less air quote accessible natures of art and creative expression.
Yeah.
And what is it for you that, is I'm going to make this wildly, I don't want to say inaccessible, but you know what I mean, to some people. It's like, well, I don't understand what you're doing with all of your talent. I don't know if you've ever had that conversation with a family member or coworker.
Yeah, I have. They haven't put it as nicely as you have, but I think, whether it's like a new friend or someone I'm sweet on or something, and I'll always preface it with, and I hate when people do this to me, so it's not very kind of me to do this, but I always preface it with like, you will not like it.
Mm,
You won't like it. And I think I do that to make myself feel better and to alleviate them of doing the song and dance of like, yeah, I listened to it on Bandcamp and well, it was really interesting. It's like it's okay. It's not for everyone. I think if I heard maybe not genital shame, but the kind of metal projects that it takes as its, you know, um chain of custody, its forebearers. Like if I heard that stuff as an adult for the first time, I would be bummed out. It's hard. It's not, as you say, it's not inaccessible. But it's a bummer to hear if you're not used to hearing people
sure.
scream their heads off.
It's what's really interesting is I actually had a pretty cool conversation with a friend recently about your music.
Real.
Um, in the sense that this is somebody that is a coworker of mine that is more of like kind of a I like music in general sort of person.
Coworker music. They like
And
coworker
but
music.
we were talking about like black metal, and they were like, I actually find it like super relaxing.
Oh,
It's
cool.
like really like I can like kind of get in a trance and lock in. And I love listening to this stuff. And I was like, oh, you should check out Genital Shame. And they
Oh,
did, and
sick.
they were like, I love this.
Oh, that makes me happy. That makes me
Yeah,
happy.
so it's kind of interesting too, where maybe using the word inaccessible isn't exactly the right word to use, but I think it's more or less people's intention, interpretation of how they care to digest art.
Yeah, I think for even for some of my friends, genital shame on the spectrum of accessibilities sounds like Mozart for babies. Like it's baby music. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
even aggressive or sonically violent or anything. But for coworkers,
Uh-huh.
most coworkers, I think your friend is an outlier. But I think for a lot of people, it's I don't know. Even though I am a pretty traditional, like was working on a song today for this upcoming record, and it's like it's a love song, it's a pop song. It doesn't really sound traditionally like a love or pop song, but its form is a popular form in terms of its structure, and it is about affection. So I'm kind of comfortable saying that it's a love song. So, anyways, one person's accessible is another person's something,
Yeah, I
the
got
opposite
you.
of that.
And listen, a wise man once asked,
Mm.
"What is love?" Right?
Mm.
So, what is a love sove?
Yeah.
There are no rules.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, a love song is actually to me, a love song is a pretty specific form of song. Um, and I don't know, I'm thinking about this in real time. I don't really know. This song is is about white blood cells. um, so it's not like a I love my partner, I love my it's not wife guy music either. It's about I'm somewhat embarrassed to say that I think I was like doom scrolling and ran into a reel of or found a reel found me of um microscopic footage of a white blood cell sort of scanning around looking for viruses to attack. And I don't know if it was, maybe I was really bloated that day or I was feeling a type of way, but it just struck me. It just really struck me that like we could really, really hate ourselves and we can feel hated and we can want to annihilate ourselves and wish we weren't born or something. But like, there's something in us that has our best, our highest good and will in mind. I mean, it's obviously a metaphor. A white blood cell is not a moral agent. But it's like, I don't know. I just thought that was beautiful. So extrapolating from that is I'm upgrading it to a love song.
Love
So
that.
I don't know.
No,
Yeah.
and I mean, as somebody that's watched more than enough X-Files, my
Yeah.
perception of things is completely warped. And who knows? It could be a
A
reality.
sentient. Yeah.
Why not?
I'm looking for viruses because I love you and I don't want you to have a virus.
Indubitably. You
Yeah.
know, they're just out here saving the world.
Yeah.
Saving people, saving
Biology.
yourself.
Yeah.
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 Art.
Mm.
Let's do a little like superhero origin story type of situation.
Cool.
What's the background? Why'd you start playing guitar? That's a very boring question, but could have an interesting answer.
It won't, but we'll see if I can surprise both of us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like a lot of folks growing up, I did the thing where I was lucky enough and privileged enough that and my parents excelled in this very specific broadband only. I had some folks who were like willing to, indulge my musical curiosity and, took my sister and I to lessons, and she took violin lessons and piano lessons and drum lessons, whereas I stuck only with guitar and piano. But as to why I started, I don't really know. I can tell you that my musical evolution went along, I think, some pretty predictable and common lines, which is to say, I liked hip hop, number one. That was like my first true love. And then like Gangsta's Paradise, the record, I had that on CD and tape, and the score by the Fugees, just like those are like my first musical memories, just listening to those records. But guitar stuff, I don't know, where does that go? I started listening to like metal really early on. And Metallica was like the highest form of musical achievement that I had heard. But I started taking like classical guitar lessons and got into classical music at large, which was around the time that I think I was exposed, fortunately or otherwise, to a little band called Dream Theater.
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh is right.
Sound the red flag
Yeah.
alarm.
Yeah.
No, cool.
And I got into shreddy stuff. I was still mostly into like classical music, but like the Dream Theater stuff and like jazz fusion inklings came online, and like Pat Metheny was really big for me. Still is kind of big for me. I love Pat Metheny so much. And eventually like went to school for classical and jazz guitar. But halfway through that, I started taking guitar lessons with someone named Aaron Carey, who plays in a metal band in West Virginia called Nachachwan. And he made a lot of mix CDs of bands like, gosh, what were they? Like early Catatonia, Pestilence, Atheist, those kind of Death, Cynic. And
Sure, yeah.
that he is the only reason that I got exposed to that kind of music. So, I went out and found some of my own stuff, but I also like was super into emo and stuff too, and played it a lot of like in a lot of math rock bands and emo bands in high school and college, and never played in a metal band, even though like I'm a metalhead at heart. And those Cynic records and the one and those Death records like really, really affected me, but I had never played in a metal band. So I think that's maybe the reason for Genital Shame, but yeah.
Okay, so prior to Genital Shame then, was there not much experience like playing metal out or even like writing it?
No, not really at all.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. Just kind of weird. Like one day I was on a run by like Point Park, and this never happens, which is to say like inspiration, lightning in a bottle type shit. But I was on a run and I was like, oh my God, I need to be in a metal band, and it needs to be called Genital Shame. And it's also the first project that I've been in where it is not democratic and it is just me.
Yeah.
So that's been weird too.
But that could also kind of explain why maybe it hadn't happened sooner, where if a big part of you being creative and making music with other people was about community and just whatever
Yeah,
was
that's
going
right.
on. And like, you're just kind of here for the ride, hanging out. And if they're making math rock and things like that, you're like, well, I like this stuff.
That is a really great explanation as to why I had not played in a metal band. Because, like, you know, I was not the kind of metal that I like is pretty specific, you know,
Sure.
and like at the top of the call, what we were talking about, you know, like it's
Uh,
pretty inaccessible to a lot of
I
people.
get it. You know, I've been on this planet for almost 40 years and I have
Mhm.
one friend I could talk about atheist records with.
Mhm.
And I know a lot of people.
Mhm.
But, you know, sometimes the stuff just gets I know those freaks are out there.
For sure.
They're
Yeah.
coming soon. I'm actually excited. I never got to see them, so I'm
Oh,
going to go
cool.
see them. But it's like, who's going to be there?
Yeah.
I don't know any of these people.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you're surrounded by people who don't really fit into the Venn diagram and only fit into the left side, like you gravitate towards that. And
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
yeah, I just never played metal with people. So just if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Just kidding. I don't believe in that.
So, whenever Genital Shame started, when did you officially launch that project?
I think 2022, like it's still new. It's
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is weird to think about, but yeah, I think 2022. Yeah.
And, you know, this is, you know, your child, your
Mm.
baby, your creation, but you do have like a handful of other people that play with you
Mhm.
in different aspects now, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, what has it been like kind of just like coming into this project like so I feel like it's probably something that's always changing and you maybe weren't necessarily expecting or planning on these things. Like how much of like your life have you had to kind of like pivot and shift around as a result of putting this art out into the world? If that question makes sense.
Not much. And maybe that's good. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that is good.
I mean, I'm lucky enough that so I'm on a label called The Garage, and on that label there's a post-rock band called Stander. Very, very like in the Pelican school of post-rock rather than like an explosions in the sky kind of thing. Um, and they are like they again, I'm lucky enough that they're willing to be my sort of like I don't even like thinking about it this way, my backing band when I play live.
Sure.
And I have some folks in Pittsburgh who play live with me too. But when I tour, it's the band Stander. They're based in Chicago. Yeah, no, I'm lucky enough that I have people who are willing to like learn this music. I forget what your question was, so I'm
Oh.
uh,
I was just asking like now
vamp.
like with, you know, one day you're running and you have an idea to start this
Oh,
band.
sure.
And now the band is like, you know, you're playing shows and you're touring and like you're even getting to do stuff outside of the country. And like how much of your life has changed as a result
Oh,
of this art? That was the question, really.
I think my interior life has changed a lot because of it. In deleterious ways, I think.
Spicy vocabulary over here.
Thank you. Again, I see the GRE. Um, you know, I think as ever, I'm sort of living two lives with it. Because it's just me and genital shame, and like I don't have like a tour manager or someone to book shows for me or do PR for me or post on have a campaign for album rollout or anything for me. It takes up so much of my mental space, so much of my time, and so much of my emotional life that it's difficult to balance with being a gainfully employed person.
Sure.
You know?
Yes.
And I have felt really conflicted about this year because you're a creative person, you've put projects out in the world, you know that like for something to come out in April, you need to have had it done by November, it seems. You know, I'm being reductive here, but like that is the sort of cadence of putting things out in the world. Like you don't just like it's not as immediate as like a social post or something, right? Like you have to work on something for a really long time. And even when it's done, it cannot see the light of day because of capital R reasons. So this year, right now, February, has been really, really busy at these European shows and a Canadian tour and putting a record out and booking where to mix and master it and just on and on and on. But also being an employed person has
Sure.
made me feel like I'm cheating in some way. I don't know on whom or what, but it has made me feel I'm a sucker for feeling guilty. I feel guilty all the time for like stepping on a crack
Okay.
on a walk or something. Like I will feel guilty about anything. And I have nothing about which to feel guilty. And yet I do, except I thought about it like this recently. And I don't even know when I just said it, I don't know what that is a reference to. I think everything that I just said, and even that I don't know. But, you know, eh, I guess what I'll call my jobby job, um, people, most people on the team I work on have a family, have kids, and like silly, obvious, and predictable metaphor. But like, kind of as you said earlier, genital shame is my little baby,
Yeah.
and so about what is there to feel guilty? Nothing. Like I'm tending to the thing that I care for more than basically anything, as these people care for their families. It's kind of a wild analogy. But I do care about it as much as I think I could care about anything,
Sure.
because it has subsumed itself into my identity in a lot of ways, my like interpersonal identity and musical identity and all of that. So I don't know. I always think about it. It's always on my mind, like worrying about it or like looking for inspiration or something. Like it's just always there. So I don't know if that's healthy. And I'm developing habits to try to leave room for delight and leave room for, I don't know, just like being so close to something all of the time for a sustained amount of time cannot be healthy, right? So I'm developing ways of just, whether that's meditation or whatever, not looking at a screen and thinking about genital shame for a little bit. I'm not doing that right now because I'm in the trenches now. But anyways, all that to say, deleterious, baby.
Yeah, it is so hard for me personally to separate myself from anything that I'm doing
Yeah.
creatively. I will
Yeah.
let it consume me.
Mhm.
And I don't know if there's this like bullshit romantic
Mhm.
thing that I have about like needing to be consumed by the art or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's real.
But as you said before, if you're gonna whatever it was, if you're gonna do it right, you need to do it yourself or
Mhm.
whatever the
That old
however
saw.
you how that old song and dance,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And but a lot of it for me comes down to the perception. Like I feel like you're seemingly self-aware that a lot of this guilt that you're feeling is self-imposed in
Absolutely.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I can relate with that in some ways because I also too am someone without many actual responsibilities outside of myself. I don't have anybody else in my life that is counting on me or needs me.
Yeah.
It's just I could just work my little job and make my little money,
Mhm.
invest it all into my little art and myself,
Yeah.
and like sometimes like I do feel bad about that because I have
Mm.
friends that are talented in their own ways, but maybe they're not able to put in the time or the effort or the resources that I can. And sometimes I feel bad about that. But also it's like,
Yeah.
well, this is just my path that I'm on,
Do
I
you
don't
also
know.
feel like those friends have things in their life that you do not? That you have designed your life in a way that is in line with your desires, and
Absolutely.
so have they, and it just so happens that what you can do, they cannot do, and what they can do, you cannot do.
Sure. And like there's some different differences. Like you could be objectively a little bit meaner about it, where it's like I followed my desires and they did not.
Yes. Yes.
And the thing is like didn't just like blink and have all of this shit in my life. I've been doing this since I was a teenager. I didn't go to college. I didn't do it's like I've just been dedicating all of my time into like recording, playing in bands, doing a stupid podcast. It's not stupid. I need to stop saying it's stupid. I use dramatic vocabulary to talk about myself all the time, and it's not good.
Sure.
But it's taken time, a lot of time.
Do you think they have actively denied themselves? I forget how you just put it, but you have followed the dream, they have not. Do you think they have not to the exclusion of, I am not following my dream, but I am engaging or enabling myself to be set up for a more prolonged life of stability? So maybe I won't play in bands. Maybe I won't start a podcast. Maybe I won't like devote myself to my practice, whatever that artistic practice is, but I will have a golden retriever and like 2.5 kid.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. There's some of that, you know.
Yeah.
I definitely have people in my life that like I grew up with and went to high school with, and some of them did the sort of like the white picket fence American dream thing, and they don't play in bands at all anymore, and they kind of like look at me as like, oh, that's cute, you're still doing that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, well, we're all having
that's
fun
so
in our own
condescending.
way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then there's some that have that, but also still have like the little practice space in the garage, and they're doing like the 90s cover band Jurgles type of circuit.
Literally. Yes. I have those. Yes.
And that's cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, then there's also the ones that did all of that. It imploded. And now they're like, you know, living their like 20-year-old D's Cafe fantasy in their 40s. And it's sad.
Yeah.
It's the circle of life. It's a whole range of emotion. Lots of different people have different experiences.
I have something to say about guilt, but first, like, how disgusting is that venue name, Jurgles?
Who the fuck is Jurgle?
I hate it so much.
Who the fuck is Jurgle?
Isn't that's a brand of lotion? Is it not?
It's Jergens.
Jergens.
Yes. Just Jurgen the Jurgle, you know?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, there's some low-hanging fruit about like some onanistic practice with Jergens.
I will say, though, I am a big fan of the Jurgles logo.
It's
so it's
supposed to look hand painted or like hand, right?
So well, their thing is they have like a guitar in the logo, kind of akin to the Guitar Center G.
Yes.
But their guitar is also a fork. Because you know how they're like a bar and grill restaurant type thing.
Are the tines the strings?
Yeah. It's,
God damn, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty tight. It's
Graphic design was someone's passion.
Yes. I remember for whatever reason, my metal band played there. It was like a holiday show, and I remember noticing it like on stage during our set and talking about it in the middle of our set. So that rules. That's the best thing about this place.
When something's that salient, you must break the fourth wall or whatever.
As soon as you step into Jurgles as a performer, there's just, it's all bets are out the window.
That's right.
We met Donnie Iris that night. He was at our show.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow, what a get.
Because, well, he's just always in the cigar bar in the back, apparently. But he watched us. Because I remember being like, there's some like older looking gentleman up front in a tracksuit that I don't know, but he looks like he's vibing. It turned out to be Donnie Iris.
That's hot as hell.
Yeah. So not all bad.
Not all bad.
Weird name, weird place.
Weird place. Bummer location if you're a Yinzer. Bummer drive. Anyways, I saw the Juliana Theory there not too long ago.
Oh.
Like a stripped down duo version of the Juliana Theory. Hometown Heroes, turns out. Anyways, guilt. May I swing us back to guilt?
Absolutely.
Okay, felt a little heavy-handed. I think like I'm comforted that you also relate to that idea that like, oh, I'm working on my silly little thing and in this little project so that I can, but also feeling weird about it. And I think that for me, I'm assigning the G word to it. I'm assigning guilt to the label of guilt to that. And I think for me and for a lot of folks who grew up in, well, in my case, it was like a evangelical fundy background. Not suffering is occasion for guilt, is like a plausible and like good equation for guilt. Like there's a logic to that, a puritanical logic to that, but there is a logic to that. And like, it is my life's work to rid those demon dogs out of my brain, you know what I mean? Which is, if you're not actively suffering, if there's not sweat on your brow or something, like, you deserve unenjoyment and you deserve guilt, and like, enjoy that, you know? And it's such a poisoned way of thinking about the world and about yourself. And again, like, I'll be undoing that my whole life. I actively do it in therapy weekly, right? Like, that's what I'm going to work on. So I don't know. I still will feel guilt for any little thing, but like, I'm trying to, in identifying coworker music and coworker families. I love how the coworker has been a very convenient scapegoat for a lot of these things.
Uh-huh.
But in identifying that, like, hey, these NPCs, these coworkers have priorities that aren't mine. I have other priorities. That's okay. There's no guilt that's needed in
Yeah.
that. That's I'm doing that to myself.
Yeah. It's just like, I have definitely felt people start to treat me differently. People that I've known for years, like, maybe I'm putting that energy out there and maybe it's not really happening, but it's just what I have genuinely felt. I've felt like people that I've known act weirder around me, or
Treat you
just
differently for what reason?
for like um obtaining, to me, what feels like obtaining some sort of level of success.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Interesting.
whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I feel bad. It's like I shouldn't feel bad about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I do have, like, I don't know, it sounds so like corny to be like I have empathy, but I do feel like I have, like, I don't know, I feel like I could feel other people's feelings when they're around me, and if somebody's like giving me a certain stare or certain energy,
Bummer.
I can like feel it, and it's like, this is what happened a lot. Like,
Yeah.
there was a couple years where I was just touring nonstop. I was never home. And like, I became like super duper isolated because I was spending a lot of time by myself. A lot of my friends weren't talking to me. I don't think it was intentional, but it would get to the point where I would be home and I would go out to a show. And the most common thing people would say to me is like, "Oh, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? Like, what do you mean, why am I here? You're playing a
Ouch.
show. This is why I'm here."
Yeah.
You know? But it's like people were like surprised to see me because they think that like I have somewhere else better to be. And it's like,
Oh,
no, I
yeah.
don't have anywhere else. This is where I want to be because like you're still my fucking friend, buddy.
Whoa, that's huge.
You know?
Yeah. What a bummer.
Yeah. But
That'll put a pall on your evening.
so it just like, yeah, so it's that has made me feel like guilty about the things that I'm doing. Like, oh, am I not engaging with my community enough, my bubble enough, because I found air quote success outside of this, that it's taking me away from the scene.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're a fan of things.
Yes, definitely.
I'm looking around where we are,
Yeah.
and you are a fan of things.
Yeah, I like things.
Do you feel like being a fan of things is part of your creative identity? What a weird question, but I think there's something to it.
Sure. I think that, my when I like go back and I think about me in my earliest stages of like creating things, like, it was always, I wanted to create stuff so I could show people like, hey, look, I'm a part of this too.
Yeah.
I make things to make friends, to be a part of a community. Like, for me now, I feel like in order for me to be a part of this local art music community, I need to contribute to be a part of that community. I feel like if I'm not contributing, then I don't have a space in that community.
Ooh, yeah.
Not that I feel that other people that aren't artists aren't a part of it, but that's just me. I feel like I need to contribute So being a fan of things,
Mhm.
it's because I want to be a part of these worlds,
Mhm.
and it becomes a weird feedback loop
That's
in my
cool.
head.
I think it stuck out to me because I don't know if I'm a fan. I think, and by which I mean, I don't know if there are like fandoms in which I'm like, yeah, I'm part of that community. In a way, the, the the highest expression of that for me is joining a subreddit dedicated to a canceled TV show
Sure.
or something.
Yeah.
But like buying physical things and like talking to people about it, I almost wish I had that in my life, but I do not. And I don't know. I don't know. That just stuck out to me. Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's like, it's interesting because like we are somewhat in like a museum of my life. A lot of it is not on camera, and that's a lot of people that have like watched the show that come into this space are like, wow, I didn't realize there was so much shit in here.
Yeah.
There's stuff everywhere. And I mean, a lot of this stuff is like there's things in here that I've had literally since I was a child.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's kind of like, well, I don't want this in my house. Like I don't want to be surrounded by all of this all the time.
Sure.
My house is actually pretty like, I wouldn't, it's definitely not minimal, but it's way more like HGTV.
You're a
like,
homeowner, Brian?
I don't own a home.
Oh, okay.
But I live in a house.
I'm sitting with royalty.
Yeah, no, I do not own a home. There, you know, I feel like this is another conversation to have, but objectively, I think being a homeowner is way more irresponsible than playing in a band.
Whoa, spicy. I like that.
Like, you know, you want to talk about the money that I'm wasting, buddy? Let's talk about you.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know, fucking, it's like, well, you know, it's like, you know, I don't have a landlord anymore. It's like, motherfucker, the government's still your landlord.
Oh, sing it, sister. I know.
But you know, this space, like, I don't think I could like live in a space this busy all the time.
Okay, yeah.
I think that it's really great in my creative sort of bubble to be surrounded by things that are creative and inspirational to me.
Yeah.
To answer the question that you had asked a little bit ago. But like in my house, it's a lot more normie, but there's still some weirdo stuff around.
Yeah, definitely.
Some freaky movie posters and stuff like that.
Sure.
But, you know, nothing too, I don't have like a bunch of like action figures and stuffed animals everywhere.
Yeah.
Unless you go in the right room.
Sure.
No.
Well, gotta have a code for that. I got a message from my parents saying like, hey, get your shit out of the house. You know, please. And by shit, they were referring to a huge Tupperware boxes of action figures. And primarily Star Trek and some Star Wars stuff. And I took
Star Trek Dream Theater.
Yeah. I get laid, dude. So I took all of those action figures to a local gaming store, like a local game shop.
Yeah.
And said, how much? Just like kick the tires on the Tupperware, like, how much, boys? And they were boys. And basically it was like maybe like 40 or 50 action, like with the backs and action figures. And they offered me like $30, right? And one of them was signed, the Deanna Troi one. Like when I was a kid, I went to a convention and she signed it. And I was like, even this? It's worth nothing, basically. And he's like, yeah. And he said, I kind of called his bluff. Because I was like, how much would you give me without the Deanna Troi action figure? And he's like, I'll give you the same amount of money. You can just have it. Right? So it's like worth nothing. So that is the one action figure I have in my living space. Anyways, it's a long walk to get to a very unsatisfying story. But anyways, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Fandoms.
Back to music, a question that I actually had. Music in terms of creating music. This is a question that I had for you a bit ago, and then we did the podcast thing where we went on a little side journey.
Sure.
With this being a solo project, Genital Shame, do you find that, or do you have the feeling that it's going to continue as primarily a solo project, or do you see a future where some of these other people that you're collaborating with on maybe more of a temporary spectrum become a little bit more a part of the creative process?
I don't know how long I'll be in Pittsburgh necessarily, but I think that I want to answer that, but I want to set the table with the idea that, you know, collaboration, you're at the mercy of a
Sure.
community or a scene.
Heard.
And there are very few people in Pittsburgh who I want to collaborate with. I know how that sounds, and I guess I do mean it. It sounds kind of mean, but it is kind of true. So I, being at the mercy of that scene, see Genital Shame as being pretty just me for the time being.
Yeah.
But there was that Sumac record from last year that made me really rethink things in terms of collaboration and in terms of live music studio recording. I don't know how much you know about that record, but The Healer, it's called. And they did it in one take, just in a room, and it made me feel like a coward. It made me feel like, oh my God, here I am just like in this, my stupid little untreated studio in my apartment with one action figure. And like, here I am zooming in as far as I can in Logic to make sure that this part of the transient shakes hands nicely with this other part of the transient, like getting fucking surgical with the shit. And like that, I'm too far up my own. Like, that's not right for me right now. I think it's easy for me to get perfectionistic.
Maybe it is right for you right now.
Who knows?
This is just where you're at now, like in this journey, in terms of just being like learning how to wear so many hats as an independent artist that wants to be self-sufficient. If it's gonna be done right, I'm gonna do it my fucking self. And I think that there comes a time, if you just navigate this conversation at a very microscopic level to self-recording, where we all go through that, and it's good I think it's actually really good practice and exercise to learn how nitty-gritty you could get to get in there, but I think over time, when you start to recognize like this is kind of bullshit, and you start to find inspiration outside of things, like that record, you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can pump the brakes on needing to
absolutely
do this. Get like a really small computer monitor that won't let you zoom in.
For the record, I do like that. For the record, I don't feel that weird or bad about zooming in that far.
Yeah.
But I think you're right that it is a snapshot of like oh my God, this is not the most organic. Probably it's the canary in a very specific kind of coal mine, which is like, is what I'm doing organic, and is what I'm doing natural, and is what I'm doing like capturing authenticity? If you're zooming in that far, I don't know. Not to say that it's not, but I don't know. But that record, as you say, really put into relief like what is possible without needing to like use the zoom tool that much, which is, I'm obviously using that as a metaphor for crippling control.
Well, also too, I think one of the biggest, it's like that, the analogy of like, if you're standing too close to a painting, it just looks, you got to take a step back. It's like, you don't even have the ability to listen to that, like to view that Sumac record up close.
Yeah.
You only get it from far back because you're just getting what has been presented to you. And you don't have like access to all of the stems that you could load into Logic. And I'm sure that if you did, you would notice those imperfections. But a lot of the time, especially with loud guitar music, imperfections are what actually give it dynamics and character. And you need that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And I think for the kind of metal I play, like there is a Genital Shame record in the future that is just an H4n in the middle, a Zoom field recorder in the middle of someone's basement.
Yeah.
And just capturing it that way, that does exist. And I do want to be more collaborative in the future, but I just like, I don't, with who?
Sure. Well,
Pittsburgh's very small.
you had mentioned too that like this project has become, so ingrained, not only like in your external life, but your internal life,
yeah.
and tied with identity and all of these other things, where it's like, music is a very romantic thing if you want to be silly about it. But working with other people on something that you care about so passionately, like that is an act of like, you could use any sort of dramatic word here, but it is intimate.
It's so intimate. It's so vulnerable. I think like even in the very, very, very minor disagreements I've had working with collaborators with Genital Shame, I'm fine with conflict as a human being, but
That's the pull quote.
Yeah. That's right. Bring it. I can take care of myself. But like, it's difficult to communicate to someone that this creative choice they're making is wrong for this. It's wrong for this. And you can only explain that in so many musical terms before you realize like, oh no, I'm coming at it from a compositional standpoint, but I'm also like, it is me that I am actually arguing for. It is
your vision.
It is symbolic for me. I'm arguing for my life here, right?
Sure,
like,
yeah.
To actually be dramatic. So when it's that personal, that is not the stuff of collaboration. The stuff of collaboration is to say, here's an idea I have. I'm not precious about it. I think it's cool, but if you have other ideas, that's cool too.
Yeah.
What's important to me is creating with you. That's the spirit of collaboration. The spirit of collaboration is like, please don't hit the bass string on the like and of this bar of 7/8. Please, you will destroy my life, and I can't explain why, but you will. That's not a collaborative spirit to be in.
Yeah. It's the song has to be the highest goal, or whatever sort of thing it is. If it's music, the song, it has to be most important. And I've spent a lot of time working with a lot of nerdy guitar people in bands.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like when you're playing with dynamics and emotion and music, especially heavy music and guitar players, sometimes it's like, what? This like chord structure or whatever you're trying to do doesn't need to be as interesting as you want it to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are like, but like, this feels simple to play. And it's like, well, sometimes human emotion is simple. Sometimes people resonate with something more simple than having something very complex,
Totally.
Talking about the conversation that you're having with the listener, what is the musical conversation here? And sometimes it's, people are like, well, I'm a really fast drummer, or I'm a really shreddy guitar player, or like, I'm a bass player. I'm not just like a bass player, but I'm a bass player. And these are all great things to have. But how does it all work in the song together?
Totally.
How does everything dance together? Are we stepping on each other's toes?
Yeah, right.
Metaphorically.
Well, steel-toed boots. So I'm not worried about it. It's funny. This is only somewhat related, but thinking about like flow state and thinking about what you're thinking about as you play, and you identifying at Jurgles the idiosyncrasy of its design made me think about how like playing live is such a funny phenomenon. It's a weird little thing because like I'm sure you've gotten to this place too, but like a lot of the times I'm playing, I will not remember like a couple things. I won't remember that like what just happened.
100%. Yeah.
But also on the other axis is I remember with exquisite and vivid detail what I was thinking about as we were playing the third chorus, which for me is usually planning, and a third level deeper than that is like, what am I having for dinner?
Sure.
It's basically always that. Yeah.
For me, it's like there are shows where like it's like I blink and it's done.
Yes.
And like those are typically the good shows. Like
Yes.
if I'm not at the point where the tension in the room is so awkward that I have to point out the graphic design on a wall, then
Yeah. That's actually a good sign.
because that's really what that the show was just weird. It was a weird show, you know, like not in like just one of those like why are we here?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's fun to play shows that don't make sense.
Yeah.
But that one was very much like a, on paper it seemed like it was fine.
Sure.
But yeah, then, just spending the whole time talking about graphic design and asking everyone how their chicken bacon ranch sandwiches are.
Yeah, no thanks. I think like I played a show in Boston with Stander when we were on tour, and I'm very funny. I'm just kidding.
I think you're a delight.
Oh, you're nice to say. I'm not. I don't think of myself as very funny, but I'm ricketying. There's a rickety segue here to what we're talking about, which is as a live performer, I think I struggle with something, which is like I do like doing bits in real life, you know? And my real life and who I am does not go away when I play live. My music is pretty serious.
Sure.
But I am not, usually.
We're talking about the yin and yang of self, right?
Well, yeah. But I remember going to Boston, playing in Boston, and this is a show that went by that I remember like every second is just like, oh no, this second is taking 2 seconds. What's happening? Yeah. Time dilation.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm bringing this up because, and I think Boston has a reputation for this, but being a market where they don't cotton very well to anything that isn't pure performance, where if there's personality there, this was at least my experience, like doing bits in between songs or something, like a lot of crossed arms, a lot like, and I don't expect people to laugh at what I'm saying ever, but and again, I don't even remember what I say, right? But I just remember that night saying something, I don't know, self-effacing or something, and it's just like, oh no, people hate this here. So maybe it just really depends on where you are. That like where a show feels like it's taking forever, like what you're doing is not appreciated.
Oh yeah. I've had some struggles in the Boston area. The worst crowds for me to play to personally, New Jersey, just doesn't work out for me. I don't know why.
Similar reasons or why?
I think it's because also doing the sort of like bitty, goofy type of stuff. Like again, a band where it's like loud, angry music, but we're, ding dongs and like, we're being ourselves and we're having fun. And it just feels like some people just aren't there to have fun.
Yeah.
And I think also too, like playing for strangers and underground music is really difficult. There's like this weird psychology where it's like, we hate nothing, but we still go out, or we hate everything because we're like so different, but we still go out to shows because we want to find new music, but we don't want to give things a chance.
Oh, that is actually huge. That's gargantuan. Yes, that's real.
And like,
wow.
So it's like, okay, like why can't, it's like, you're here because you want to engage with new music.
Right.
But like, there's too much personality right now. I'm like not ticking the right box. I'm not, my shape isn't fitting into your shape the way that you want it to right now.
That's a good way to put it.
And, I'm like, okay. So I try not to take it too personally, but it could be really hard. I like the way you put it when you said like every second feels like 2 seconds. There's definitely times where it's like that.
I think in the same way that for a lot of people are happy to be with their friends and out or experiencing new things and whatever. But nothing is better. There are like so many memes about this, but like nothing is better than being on your own couch looking at 2 screens, And like for people who go to shows and ostensibly say that they are art enjoyers, capital A, capital E, and that they support underground music. Like, the version of being on their couch looking at two screens is ordering another Miller High Life and not watching your band and flirting with someone at the bar.
Sure.
You know, like, I say that I want to be there, but like nothing, the Siren song of just like not actually doing the work of a couple things. Standing as a 30-some-year-old or 40-some-year-old. And number two, like, being exposed to new art is a psychological stressor, I think, for a lot of people. It is for me, um, because of what it is, because it's not familiar to you, and you're using like a lot of cognitive capacity to, in real time, keep asking yourself, like, is this good? Am I having fun? Was that like note choice interesting? Is the vibe good?
Yeah.
And like, that's not as rewarding as going to the bar, ordering another beer, and seeing what Shelly's doing or whatever,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah, there's an interesting social aspect to being a part of the community where it's like you go out and you see somebody that you haven't seen in a while and you're just genuinely connecting with somebody for
Mhm.
20 minutes and then you miss half of a set. And then
Mhm,
when I'm like
mhm.
watching a band I've never seen before, my brain is asking all of those questions that you asked. And I'm like, oh, like what gear are they using?
Yeah.
Why are they moving around on stage like that?
Yeah.
Like, what is this their back like I'm like thinking about like all of the ins and outs of everything. I can't just like
Yes.
enjoy something flat out. There's like a sweet spot if I'm like toasted enough that
Yeah.
I can not think about things, but then
Yeah.
I'm like one more drink away from being completely gone.
Yeah, and it sucks that I can relate. And it sucks that you need to get almost comatose to get to a place where it's like,
To turn the thinking off.
yeah, yeah. Also, like, thinking that things suck is cool,
Sure.
you know?
Sure.
Like, seeing a new band from out of town, it's fun to be like, damn, not my thing. They kind of sucked.
Yeah, I have this like really corny sort of perspective on going to shows where I treat it basically like class in a way. And like my ticket price is the tuition.
Class as in, like,
I'm going
in a
to learn
scholastic way or like in a Marxist way?
in a scholastic way.
Okay, gotcha. Either way.
No, in the way where it's like this is my like I'm buying a ticket. This is
Yeah.
my tuition and I'm coming here to learn
Oh,
something tonight.
yeah.
You know, whether it's I'm learning what not to do, what to do, be inspired or be disgusted. I just want some feeling from being
Yeah.
at this event. In most shows, you get a little bit of all of that. It's never
Yeah.
perfect.
I was being a little facetious when I said that. When it's cool to think things
I know what you
suck.
mean. Yeah, I know what you mean
But
though.
yeah, I think that's another version of saying what I said earlier, which
It's
is like, it takes less cognitive capacity to enjoy something.
and it's fun to be a hater.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Come on.
It is.
It's fine.
For sure. It's and then praising things is its own skill,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Is its own, but it can be fun. But like, when are you ever surprised when you at a show? There is no surprise because you get to look up the bands beforehand, or it's a founder's effect, which is like, you're not going to go to a show where you don't know the bands, and if you only know some of the bands, you're going to go later to miss the band that you don't know because history has shown you that they will probably suck. So it's just like, almost against your will is the only time that one is ever exposed to new music.
Yeah,
Right?
I've been in that cycle where I've tried to use external things as excuses for not engaging with the scene.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I have to work a little bit later, so I have to get to the show late
For
or
sure.
whatever. But it's for real, it's just like if you cared enough, you would leave early or make
Yeah.
the arrangements, you know?
Yeah.
But now I do genuinely try to go out of my way to engage with new art, and especially when it comes to metal or loud guitar stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I almost never even want to hear a band until I see them live. I don't give a fuck about their
cool.
studio stuff because I just don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
You know?
Because they zoom in too far.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, there's definitely a lot of modern heavy stuff that still has like a really nice organic feel to it, but so much of it is like techno music basically.
Yeah.
And like, I just don't vibe with it. From a producer standpoint, I'm like, oh, this is really fun to listen to because this is just absurd and my fucking dopamine is just getting thrashed.
You're talking about like metal with industrial elements or like techno elements, you said?
I'm talking about even just like a band that is like a technical death metal band.
Okay.
The recording process is so processed that it is basically an electronic album.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
If you really break it down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's that surgical.
Yes.
To the grid.
Yeah.
It's quantized.
Like listening to like Planetary Duality by the Faceless.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible record, but that's like, for me, like that's electronic music. That's how my brain processes that. I actually enjoy it more if I think about it on that level than thinking about it as like humans sitting in front of laptops making everything perfect.
Yeah.
I have to almost approach it from an alien standpoint, which is probably what they were going for.
Maybe. Yeah, for that record. I think that record is the furthest you can get towards being quantized without losing
it gets
some humanity.
It gets crazier. You get into like the Rings of Saturn and other stuff that was happening in that same time frame. Yeah.
And that band Archspire.
Oh yeah, those guys.
Just like, one song is a real diversion. It's cool and fun, but like, man, a whole record of that just like absolutely quantized shit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I saw them. I actually saw them live.
Okay.
And it was interesting. I was like, okay, respect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously not as laser tight.
Yeah.
But they played well.
Sure,
and I was like, I would rather actually, I don't know, maybe I'm a weirdo, but I would prefer to hear it a little looser just because it sounds a little bit more easier for me to listen to. But like all of my friends that like that band are the type of people that I think are just like, they almost have like this sounds so dramatic, but drama is makes the world go round. It's like almost like an addict type personality where it's like, I need something that's just really, really fast and really, really crazy. And it's like, well, why do you like this? Because it's just insane, you know?
Yeah.
There's no like real like creative or like artistic explanation. It's just like, this is just crazy.
That is a
That's cool. I get that.
That is a Punisher attitude.
Yeah.
About liking things because of their extremity. And I think like a band like that, which I bet you're right. I bet live it is a different experience, but like it is about athleticism.
Sure.
In a way that it's just like I could play on beat at this BPM doing these things, and I don't know.
It's like an exercise in ego, an exercise in just like ability. It's a tech demo. It's like I'm at like NAMM.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, like if I was there, sure, you could shred and show me all the fun effects, but that's just not how I engage with art that I intake personally.
For sure.
But people find value in everything. I also listen to a lot of objectively very dog shit music, so.
Absolutely. Like what? Name a few bands.
Huh?
On mic. Just
I don't have any issue. I mean, like there's
you said you like drama. I'm just kidding.
I do like drama. I mean, there's several problematic reasons for liking a band like Mindless Self-Indulgence nowadays, but Frankenstein Girls is one of my favorite albums of all fucking time.
Yeah.
It really warped my brain when I was a teenager.
People love that record. Yeah.
It's just wild. And then like, stuff like early Slipknot, Linkin Park, the first two Korn records. I love that stuff to death.
Yeah. It's Michael Jackson for me. All the way, baby. I love an MJ. He's one of my, like, Man in the Mirror is one of my favorite songs, like top 5 favorite song. The bass line, the bass tone at the end of Man in the Mirror is one of my favorite musical moments in all of like recorded music. But he diddled kids. But do I have enough brain power to be like, hold on. Couple things. He didn't write that song. Someone wrote that song. They're still alive, as far as I know. And like, who played the bass synth on that. Not Michael Jackson. Like, I can enjoy it.
Sure.
Like, I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
I think where it gets slippery for me is not music stuff, even if there is like, you know, the Nazi alliance in black metal, where like a lot of really great black metal bands have really bad opinions, obviously. But I think it's comedians for me is the biggest bummer.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, I love him so much. And it is a him. But he was, I'm thinking about Horatio Sands.
Okay.
Like, I love Horatio Sands so much. Like, as an improviser, he doesn't get a lot of shine as an improviser, but as an improviser, he's so good. But he was a like SNL 50 thing, like cancel culture isn't real, et cetera, et cetera. But it's still a bummer. Anyways. Yeah.
No, I get it. Me and a friend the other night, we were hanging out and we were like talking about Brand New, the band.
Love.
And you know, their record Daisy is a phenomenal rock and roll record.
Rocks. Yeah.
Just like the production, the intention behind all of the songwriting, it is like an emotional powerhouse.
Great record.
But it's like, don't really like feel the same listening to it anymore. You know, there's like an air of like, I'm not supposed to be doing this, and my empathy for other people and, you know, culture is just like, should I be engaging with this art or not?
Yeah.
It makes it difficult.
That
but
record is so good.
Fucking rules.
It does rule.
So tricky stuff.
Anyways.
The dynamic range of human life. We're only here for a little bit of time.
It's not a dress rehearsal.
You know, what can we do?
Yeah.
You know,
for sure.
What can we do? So the train's coming around the station here on our hour.
Yeah.
That we've been chatting. We could gladly chat more, but I'm sure all of our lovely listeners have other things that they need to do today. Like probably listen to some of your music.
I don't know.
If they haven't already.
There are only so many dishes you can wash for a podcast.
Yeah. So. But before we get off this choo-choo, is there anything that you would like to tell the wonderful, lovely listeners of this esteemed podcast?
Is this me?
Yeah, actually, yes, that is you. Yes.
Okay. Obey your congressman, love Christ, be happy with your life, enjoy the people with whom you spend time, but most importantly, obey your congress people who control you.
Yeah.
So no, all that to say no, I don't have anything really.
Well, it's been really great sitting down and chatting with you. I'm really excited and stoked for everything that you have been able to accomplish in these short couple of years.
Thank you.
And I am really looking forward to seeing where things take you over the course of this year. Lots of fun, exciting things, new music, new opportunities.
More emails.
Plenty of emails. Yes.
Yeah.
So
thanks, Brian.
You're very welcome, Aaron. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Genital Shame, one more time.
Give it up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kidding. Sorry.
Well, with all of that being said, that is all, folks. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Brian Sykes House. Start the Beat is the podcast. 2025 is the year. And until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of the people around you. Peace the fuck out. We did it. That was a podcast.
Is that it?
That's it.
It went by so quickly.
Yeah, it was a solid